This is part 9 of the Craftsman Emerson 150 Drill Press Rebuild Series. If you haven't seen part 8, click the link at the top of the screen. In this video, we will be fabricating a stator band and starting some of the masking. Hello everyone, I'm Jeff and welcome to my shop. We got a lot to cover, so let's get to it. Originally, I wanted to reuse the original stator band. It did not come from this drill press, but it has a lot of rust on it. So here I'm just mounting it to a piece of MDF that I use for this. And we start dry sanding it. And I learned real quick that the pitting on this thing is pretty bad. So it's not going to work for us. It's not going to shine up like we want to shine it. It's going to have like a pebbled finish on it. So the next option was to fabricate a stator band. So here I'm just measuring the existing stator band. And then we've got a piece of sheet steel that you can get at any Home Depot or Lowe's. And we're going to transfer all these measurements over to it. So I don't remember the exact thickness of this. I want to say it was 26 gauge, but I don't remember exactly. So it's not super thick. It's easy to bend. Real easy to get those corners on it bent. So, and if you buy some sheet metal, make sure it's not galvanized. You can do this with aluminum sheet metal as well. Like a 0.019 thickness would work okay. But when it gets to the point where you need to fold the ends to connect the stator band, the aluminum has a tendency to break or crack. So the sheet metal is a little bit more forgiving in that respect. So here I'm just drilling out the holes to mount the motor data panel, and I kind of marred up the sheet there with that hammer, but not the end of the world. One of those indentions is going to be covered by the motor data panel, and the other one we'll just have to live with. So after we've got this thing cut out to the size we need it and the holes drilled, it's time to go ahead and get this thing mounted, and then we're going to sand it. So for sanding, I'm going to use my orbital sander, and I think I started with 100 grit. I don't remember exactly. But we're going to progress up from whatever we started with and work our way all the way up to 320. And those kind of rectangles that are cut out on the ends, that's the sharpest areas that will rip that sandpaper when you get close to it. So just kind of be careful there. With an orbital sander, you can't reverse the direction of its spin, so, or at least on mine you can't. So you're just going to have to work real close to that edge on the right-hand side without ripping your sandpaper. Next, we're going to wet sand, and for this, we're going to start at 320. And we're going to work our way up, 320, 400, 600, 800, and then 1,000 grit. And we're going to rinse between each grit. And you'll see when I get down on the right-hand side there, a lot of times I'll reverse the direction of the rotation of the sanding disc. That way it doesn't snag on that corner. And there's your 1,000 grit. And we're not using a lot of pressure on any of this stuff. We're just letting the sandpaper do the work. So next we're going to pull that stator band back off of there and clean everything off. Make sure it's dry. If we don't, then the polishing compound is going to clump up. And yes, those edges are really sharp, so just be careful. All right, so now we can remount the stator band again. And you don't have to really worry about those two tabs that are coming off of both ends. They're not going to be seen, or no more than, say, 1/4 of an inch of them are going to be seen, so no big deal. You don't have to sand them or polish them or anything. They're all going to be covered by the base for the motor. And here I am demonstrating my excellent screwing ability as I send screws flying across my table. And these are just sheetrock screws, so the heads on them keep breaking off. But I've got like a giant bucket of them, so that's what I'm using. I think I have to go grab another one. And you can see that there is a reflection in the stator band. It looks real cloudy, and it is cloudy, but this is going to change it all. The mother's mag and aluminum polish. Now, if you recall, when we were working on the metal lathe polishing some parts, I told you that the more stages of sanding that you do, the more you can remove those scratches. And this is certainly true when you're working on something like this. And we could have sanded this all the way up to, 5,000 grit. I've got sandpaper all the way up to that point. But really, it becomes a diminishing return. And what we're trying to achieve, this does not have to be a mirror. So after we apply the mother's mag and aluminum polish, we're just using a buffing wheel. And we're buffing the polish. Again, be careful on that right-hand side. And this is like a 2-inch or 3-inch, I can't remember exactly, little sanding and buffer kit that I got off of Amazon. It came with all these different Velcro attached heads to the mounting base there. And then I bought like a box of the sandpaper, like a big variety box off of Amazon as well. And this definitely makes it easier for like the wet sanding, for instance. Because I'm not sure, the orbital sander, I'm not going to dunk it in water, so this, I can stick that whole Velcroed foam pad part in the water, and the electronics of the drill never get close to the water. So we're just coming back and buffing off the rest of the polish with this ShamWow. And you can see that that shine is pretty deep. It's exactly what we need. Like, I can see the reflection of my entire hand. That's what I was doing with my thumb there a second ago. So I have a vinyl cutter, like a Cricut or a Silhouette. I have the Silhouette, but they're basically the same thing. And I can cut out vinyl and use it as masking, which is what I've done here. And these are just 1/8 inch stripes that are spaced 1/8 of an inch. And it's using, or I'm using, a piece of the clear contact tape over the top of it. That keeps everything aligned. And we'll go ahead and align that with that top edge of the stator band. And trying to get it as perfect as possible. And then we'll go ahead and press all that down, make sure it's adhered. That's just a tongue depressor stick from Hobby Lobby. And I'm using like a squeegee or whatever you call those things. Anyways, so now we can remove the contact tape and any of the vinyl lines that are not on the stator band. And then we're just going to use a green 3M pad to scuff up the area that's exposed between those lines, between the vinyl lines. I guess another option would be, if you've got access to a media blaster, you could media blast it at this point, and it would kind of achieve the same desired effect. Now, I have a media blaster, but this seems like a lot less work. It's a shame about that hammer strike there on the stator band, but it is what it is. So now we can remove all the masking. And as we do that, you'll see that we've achieved the desired effect that we were looking for. And this is a pretty good replication of the original stator bands. There we go. So we can unmount that band. Pretty good. All right, so here we have the motor data panel that we cleaned up in part 8. And the holes in it are a little small, so we need to drill those out. I'm going to be using these eyelet rivets that are 3/16 of an inch. I've had some 1/8 of an inch ones before, but the problem with them is they're not as long as these. These are like 1/4 of an inch long. And the 1/8 of an inch ones, at least the ones that I've found, are all brass, whereas these are actual steel. And they've got that, I don't know what you call it, kind of a brushed steel look to them. So they look pretty factory. So I do have a press that I could press these on with, but I've got the anvil and the striker. This is how most of you guys are going to do it anyways, so this way I don't have to drag out the press and all that. And I think I got these off of Amazon as well. If not, I got them from one of my holster supply places. I can't remember. But they work really well, and they look great. In most places, if you buy like a pack of 50 or 100 of these eyelet rivets, it'll come with that anvil and that striker. All right, so really the next thing is just kind of trying to get this thing to shape. And it'll conform around the motor stator once we've reassembled all that stuff anyways. But yeah, the only other thing that I would recommend is that you apply like a penetrating oil to this stator band, or some wax like that Johnson's floor wax or some carbon wax, just to keep it from rusting, because it is bare metal now. Probably should have done that before we added the data panel, but yeah, I can't think of everything. So we'll set that aside. Not bad. Except for that. Oh well. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is start prepping for paint. So these are the two end frames for the motor. And I've got these two pucks, if you will, that I cut out of like one of those 1/2-inch thick rubber floor mats that you use for exercise rooms and whatnot. And then we're going to mask off the top and cut that out. Because that is a milled surface there, and obviously we do not want to paint the inside where the bearings are going to be. So we'll do that for both of the end frames. And that is everything that we're going to mask for the motor. And here we have the table. So there's quite a few areas on here that we're going to mask. First is going to be the two bores that the lock goes through. And each one of those bores is milled about 1.5 inches in. And then it's raw in between the two bores on the inside of that opening. So I want to make sure I get paint on that raw area that's not milled. But all the milled surfaces, I don't want any paint on. So we'll do that for both sides. Sorry about my head being in the way. And then we can start to mask the column bores, and there are 2 of them. So when I mask those bores, I'm just lining up the bottom edge of the tape with the bottom edge of that milled bore. And then we'll come back and trim the excess tape. And we'll do the same for the upper bore. And while I was doing this voiceover, I realized that I did not mask that boss around that upper bore. So I quickly went back into the workshop and masked it and shot this video. So that's why you see the rest of that already masked, but we'll get to it in a second. So I'm just masking the outer edge and letting any of the excess tape go towards the inside. And we'll speed this footage up. And we just cut out the outside of it. And then we'll cut some slits in any of the overhang on the inside and press that down into the bore. Like so. So we've got that boss on the left-hand side there, or left hand as we look at it. And we're going to cut out the outside of it and then the inside of it. If you didn't know, that's to store your chuck key. All right, and the last thing we need to do is the table itself. So here all we're going to do is mask the outside edge around the table. And just cut off any of that excess. Pretty easy. And we'll do that for all four sides. And then we're going to come back and we're going to mask off those cutouts in the table. That way, when we paint the underside, the paint doesn't bleed through onto the table. Then we're going to cover the table with a piece of wax paper or parchment paper. Any paper would do, but it's what I like to use. And then we'll tape that down. And then run across through the center of it. And that completes the table. And that wraps up this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe. In the next video, we will continue with the masking, and then we're going to get to priming and painting. So I appreciate all the support, and as always, I will see you next time.